what they're trying to hawk now. Announcing a brand new podcast from the makers of Planet Marzipan, Planet Music.
In a streaming world, we're proud to be a podcast that celebrates the art of the album.
Available now from most of your usual podcast providers. Check out our new Facebook group, which is Planet Marzipan Presents Planet Music.
Welcome to Planet Marzipan Podcast,
Your Fish and Marillion podcast,
where we talk about all things in the planet of Marillion and fish. I'm Mezza, and here's my mate,
Craig Houston.
Hello, welcome to Planet Marzipan. I'm Mezza. I'm here with my good friend
Craig.
Craig, not Faye.
She needs a week off. Come on, she's
She needs an airing, I think.
Yeah, she's getting a bit mouldy.
As you can tell from the title of the episode, we are hit back to Hogarth era Marillion albums after a long break, and we're here to discuss Happiness is the Road. So we thought we'd invite some friends back. So we welcome back the man with all the secrets, James Levey.
Good evening.
Evening, James, band's archivist. We welcome back Nathan Page.
Evening.
Evening, Nathan. We welcome back Mr. Epic, Andrew Barnsley Wood.
As is this album. This album is epic, everybody.
He's peaked already, look. He's
Just so you know.
Load.
Just so you know.
Said it all.
Good night.
That's our review. Thank you. Good
Spoiler
night.
alert. There you go.
And we welcome back Felicity Pryke.
Hello.
Hi, Felicity. It's a double album, so we've got you back. You only do double albums on here, don't you?
I did Brave's not a double album.
It is on vinyl.
Oh, okay. Aren't they all on?
Anyway, that's the point of order. So we're here to discuss.
Coming back for marbles, then, is it?
Yeah, you're a shoe-in for that. You're a shoe-in. So we're going to discuss the album in the two parts of Essence and The Hard Shoulder, but they are all covered on one Wikipedia entry. But before I do that, I have to ask Craig how old he was when Happiness is the Road came out.
Oh, this came out the end of 2008, so
Yes.
I will have been 36.
You old git.
Yes.
All right.
Young man.
Young man. So we'll go to the Wikipedia entry. Happiness is the Road is Marillion's 15th studio album, released in 2008 as two separate album-length volumes, respectively titled Essence and The Hard Shoulder. The overall playing time is 110 minutes, or 116 minutes including the hidden track, taking it to double album length. The album sees Marillion experimenting with a host of new instruments, including dulcimers, glockenspiel, a harmonium, French horns, and even sleigh bells, a harp, and a zither. The title track, Happiness is the Road, was inspired by Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, and the album's artwork was created by the Spanish artist Antonio Sejas, is it? Is that right? Looking for a nod from anybody?
Close enough.
Apologies, Antonio, in the unlikely event that you listen to this, with Marillion's longtime designer, Carl Glover. There's quite a lot to talk about on the lead up to this album, isn't there?
Well,
Yes, there is, John.
Yes.
It's quite
I'm
busy.
sat here on my own, folks. Nobody else turned up.
Yeah, it was a time where they were cranking out stuff at a rate of knots, between because it was only a year after Somewhere Else, and suddenly bang, was it like 15 or 16 months later? Here they are with a double album, and
Yeah.
straight after this, year after this, you have Less Is More, so you've got 3 releases within the space of 3 years there. So that's
Got that
it-
product, got to get that product out. I mean,
yeah.
the other thing that was really contentious about this album was the way that it was released.
yeah.
Am I right in saying, John, is this the one that Mark Kelly spoke over? Is it that album, or have I got it wrong?
No, that's Somewhere Else.
I'm on the wrong podcast here, guys.
This is the album that was released to the torrent sites.
Oh, that's
Yes.
right. That's right.
So we'd all
And-
pre-ordered it and paid for the recording and got our names in the super duper book. But then, in a fit of genius, the band decided to put it out on the torrent sites.
Much to Lucy's disgust, because that was something that she really fought against.
Was
It
this
went out
also?
before we got the physical product, didn't it?
Yeah. Wasn't
am I
it?
right in-
Sorry,
Sorry,
go on,
go on.
Baz.
I was going to say, am I right in saying then this is the one where it found its way to BBC TV because they mentioned on the news that they'd released a new album for free and gave it away?
Yes.
Yes.
I think, that's how I remember it. That's right.
But wasn't it an
Go ahead,
inferior copy though? It wasn't the full Beans copy. It was a MP3.
I think it was a low quality MP3.
Yeah.
And you had there was a link through it to sign up to the website and the mailing list, whereby you could download a higher res copy, I think.
Yeah, they had a little
you-
intro on the front of it or something.
I think you could pay what you want. Was it pay what you wanted as well? Pay what it's worth? Was it one of them sort of things?
What
Yeah,
it's
something like
worth,
that.
that's a different
It's
question.
£1,000. It's amazing. Anyway, that's not stuff.
I'm trying to think if it was there a download, like a higher quality download for people who pre-ordered it as well.
No, I don't think there was. There was a lot of hoo-ha from folks that had pre-ordered it saying, why are you sending this out? I've not even got my copy yet.
Mm.
And why is it out on torrent sites? I mean, it was a brave decision, wasn't it? They were, torrent sites were rife. When they still are at this. I'm looking at somebody on this podcast, but they still are at the moment. But at the time, they were really at the height, weren't they?
Was it
Yeah.
the Napster generation?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I think the logic was it was going to end up there in any case. But so if they did it themselves, they at least had some control over the launch of it.
Yeah.
But also from memory, it didn't go to retail either, because I think from listening to one of the live gigs, H says you can't get it in HMV, you can't get it in Xavi, if anybody remembers that. So you either had to get the torrent or you had to have pre-ordered it from Marillion in order to have the product.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
the
they did relent in that later
Yeah.
on, but yeah, initially, yeah, that's right. And then the single that was released, Whatever Is Wrong With You, was a download only, but they did a video competition, didn't they?
They did, indeed. Did you ever anyone? I had a go at it.
Did you?
Yeah, well, I got half. I'll say it exactly as it was. I got halfway through it, and then I got bored, so I just did the first half and sent it in.
So was yours Whatever Is Wrong?
Which sort of sums up my life, really.
Not surprising.
Lost interest halfway through.
I don't remember seeing the winning video though.
I don't either.
No,
And
they did.
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
think
go on.
there was one. I think
There was
when-
two winning ones because they
Yeah.
did a most popular one and then a favourite one. So I think
I
they
think
was put like £5,000.
when
each,
H
I
was
think.
going through doing the videos on the Corona Diaries, and I think it was mentioned. Hold on, you haven't mentioned these two.
I
Right.
think there's actually.
There was
if
a-
I'm, sorry, go on,
Go on,
go on,
Baz.
James.
No.
I was going to say, I think they actually. I think if I'm not mistaken, there's 2 won the prize, and they also put about another 5 out. So there's about 7 different videos for it about somewhere, varying qualities. I think mine must have been number 8. I'd imagine.
I saw a South Park version. That's the one. The 2 I remember is a South Park version and a Lego version.
Right. Okay.
But this,
I'm sure they're out there, and
Mm.
I'm embarrassed to say I've not really researched it. So
One of them is surround
Yeah.
sound as well, John.
do it. Also.
Go on, Nathan.
The video asking people to do it is still
Yeah, the video's there. Yeah.
channel. So if
Sure.
you are interested in going back and watching Marillion with the flip sheets going, this is what we want you to do, you can still go back and do that.
Right. Well, there you go. Okay.
But to go back to what you're saying about the lead up to the album, because this was the second album Mike Hunter was in the producer's chair for, and it's the first one that they recorded the jams direct to multitrack, because he'd started having his influence on the band, because he wanted to do that for Somewhere Else, but they were still very much dragging their feet. So Somewhere Else was written to Minidisc, and Happiness, or the sessions of Happiness, which really blended in straight from Somewhere Else, they didn't really stop.
Yeah.
Was straight to multitrack, which has an impact on a couple of the songs, which we'll get into. And it was also the way that on your interview with Pete, which was fantastic, by the way, I must say, that was
It was actually
a great
Well,
episode.
Pete was lovely, yeah. But thank you.
Yeah. And he mentioned about the way they jam now, which is literally just they turn up, see what happens. If nothing happens, they go home.
Yeah.
This was the beginning of that, because they started jamming around things they were doing other ways. So they weren't directly coming in to write for an album. They were coming in to do rehearsals, or they were coming in to do something else, and they just happened to, get in the live room, jam around, see what happens. If it works, great. If it doesn't, and that was the beginning of it.
Do you think they were in a rich vein of form then? I mean, this is the longest album they have ever made.
Well, it's for the first time, I think the only time, maybe a little bit differently, but it was the first time definitely that they had a clutch of songs left over from the previous sessions. But unlike the previous sessions, where the songs were in demo form or backing track, they were fully recorded, fully mixed.
Yeah.
You had 7 songs, if my notes are right. So you had, from the proposed EP from 2005, you had State of Mind and Real Tears. And then from the Somewhere Else, which they basically wrote a lot of songs and then chose their best 10, whatever fitted together they liked. And then whatever came later moved over. So you had Especially True, Half the World, half Full Jam, Trap the Spark, Threw Me Out, Older Than Me. So when they went even to started recording or writing, they had them sitting on the shelf.
Wow.
And they had some bits and pieces left over musically as well, and lyrically and things like that. So they had an abundance of music, which is why I think you get the 2 volumes.
Yeah.
Interesting. A lot of those songs are a hard shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if this is the right album, and Lucy may completely shoot this down, but wasn't this one that proposed could have gone out as a series of EPs rather than an album?
They've talked about it across the years and other times. I don't know why they don't do that. I don't know. I mean, we asked Mark Kelly that, didn't we?
We did.
Didn't Pete mention that as well? He said,
Well,
said something about at the moment the next one will be an album, but it might not. So it was kind of intimated something like that.
I mean, I can see both sides. You get the music out there, but I think when you look back on the history, EPs tend to be forgotten about.
Yeah.
But then so has this album.
We could come on now.
Whoa, what? All right.
Not from my perspective, but
throwing bombs in. What's happening?
From a fan's point of view, and from the band's point of view as well. I think that a lot of this material has gotten forgotten.
I think you're right. I think it's because there was such a big plethora of material at that time over those 2 years, and then when you get to Sounds That Can't Be Made and Interfere and stuff like that, you're right. They've definitely been. It's like a forgotten album almost. I mean, some tracks turn up. I mean, Real Tears for Sale from The Hard Shoulder was a staple for a good few years.
Real Tears for Sale was in the set list before the album came out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think because of that, and whether you agree or not, I see this almost as the end of the trilogy of albums, because I see this from Marbles to Somewhere Else to Happiness, almost like a trilogy, because it's got lyrically and thematically linked because of where the songs came from and things like that. You've got Marbles of an album of pain and grief and sadness and things like that. Then you move into Somewhere Else, which has also got some of that. But then you move into, it's like a black and white album, which goes into the the new relationship of H, so that optimism, and then you move into happiness, which you've still got pain or the echoes of pain and grief and things like that, but they also got the optimism as well. So I see those three albums linked.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's
a really good overview, James. Yeah, absolutely. Should we talk about some music?
Just before we do that, John, just if I may, was I right in thinking at some point it was going to be released as two separate single albums? And is that how it went to retail? Did they not put Essence out first?
No.
Or it certainly talked about, wasn't it, at some point?
I don't.
To my knowledge.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but it didn't go to it went to retail as a double album.
Yeah, I know at one bit they were going to do it as two part. At one point, it was muted that they were going to release the first one for retail, then the second one for retail, say 6 months later. And
I think with hindsight, that might have been a better move.
Yeah,
we'll talk about. We're going to talk about Essence now, which is fairly well formed as a standalone record in its own right, isn't it? As I'm sure.
Yeah,
we'll come on to. Anyhow.
Yeah, things with Essence, it's one of those albums that is almost a very kind of loose concept album. I would say its themes are all linked, and it's heading in a direction. It builds. I think some of the stories and things like that. It builds up to the title track. But that's it, just in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I think it also didn't help about Essence was the fact that Mark Kelly came out in an interview and went, "It's a bit like Brave." So you're kind of anticipating this kind of quite deep album, and it is a deep album in many ways, but it's not Brave.
Yeah. No, it's not.
In a different direction, I guess.
No, it's not Brave.
But I can.
Not Brave. Barnsley likes this, yeah.
Being devil's advocate, I can see a little bit because Brave they say play it loud with the lights off.
Yeah.
With this one is a late night chill out album for me. It is like the band's most warm, relaxed sort of. Although you've got the lyrical themes and things like that, it's very warmly mixed, and it's almost like it's got all those, or it's got influences you've never heard before. I don't think we're in, like the Tamala Motown stuff, the gospel stuff.
Yeah.
Which is new territory for the band.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a grower, I think, as well. And I think maybe a lot of fans haven't had the patience with it that it requires. And that it was interesting you saying that warm sound. This time, listening to it a few times the last week or so, really, I'm not generally a production geek, but there's so much depth to the sound, and it's so lush.
Yeah.
It's from that, just from a soundscape point of view, it's a really beautiful album.
It is, and I think because a lot of stuff is brick walled and nowadays this stands out as the clarity on this recording is amazing.
Yeah.
It's not brick walled by any means, and the vinyl, which we will get onto later in my favorite slot, was mastered for vinyl, and it's so dynamic. When it's quiet, it's really quiet, and when it's loud, it's really loud. It's amazing. Anyway,
it's the opposite of Somewhere Else, where Somewhere Else was the live, tried to be a live sounding album. This is very much a layered production album.
Sonic's the word I'm trying to use, but couldn't find the second word to go with it.
What ick?
It's not hedgehog.
Sonic.
Epic. Sonic.
Very Sonic. Very Sonic, I think is the word I'm looking for.
Shall we talk about the music?
Go on then.
Yeah.
Go on then.
I mean, I have to say, just kind of again, the perspective of the album as a whole. The first time I listened to this, I think it was with the ex-husband, and I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. But we were driving.
He can't.
I'm sure somehow he'll correct me. But I seem to remember it was he must have downloaded it, and we listened to it in the car. And the first time I listened to it, I was almost in tears because I thought it was absolutely appalling. I thought it was awful. I hated every second of it. I was in tears because I'm like, what? Oh my God, what has happened to my favourite band? This is awful. And I think it was the third listen where it just ticked in my head. I was like, oh, this is starting to show some beauty and joy to me now. So it's one that really sticks in my mind as me going from one end of the spectrum to just thinking this is a load of trash to actually seeing it as a real gem.
Well, being a bit of a torrent Philistine, I downloaded it, but there were gaps between every track. I couldn't get it to play seamlessly, gapless. So anyway, I am definitely going to talk about music because I've asked you about 5 times. So track 1 is Dreamy Street.
An ethereal 2 minutes that you're just thinking, hurry up, get to the next track.
It's a good scene setter, I think.
It is, yes. It is.
This is an album that this disc is quite positive, which is unusual for Marillion, and it is that kind of sense of just being laid there, chilled out, and actually being quite happy with life. I think, quite a rare thing in Marillion.
My vote would be, I would say it's just a little warmer for the album, really. It's just like an introduction. And it's almost a song that you don't critique as is it a good song? It's more just, this is the warm up. It's like a little intro or a little overture before the album starts, in my mind. Well, as you know, I like this album. There's nothing going to put dissuade me about that. So I just think it's part of the build up to the album, part of the build up to the story, if that makes sense.
I think my favorite bit about it is actually, if you listen really closely, you can hear Emil Hogarth's heartbeat. It's very faint, but it's definitely in there, and it kind of almost brings in that thing of the album's about life and lots of other stuff. And I think it's very fundamentally, he was a new life. I think it's taken from the ultrasound. So
yeah, it is.
I thought it was a really nice touch.
Brilliant.
Baby, a human sunrise, indeed.
And also, I think it leads into musically the piano, and Mark, I think, is the first album for me is where you can really hear Mark starting to assert himself in the writing process, which has happened sort of since some subsequent albums, because I think a lot of the incidental music and the shorter ones are quite piano led.
Definitely. I mean, this is as you've said, they're now recording the jams, and the shift in the writing and the proportion of writing away from Rothers to Kelly and other members of the band is really moving on at this point, isn't it?
And also, as we will discuss, Rothers is changing his guitar palette a lot.
Yes, we will discuss that probably more so in the second part of this.
Yes, in the second part. But it's a jam from, I think H had the words sort of floating around, but it's from, when is it, November 2007. So it was just before they were rehearsing for the Snow Where Else tour when this came up.
Okay. On to This Train Is My Life, track 2.
One of my favourites.
Lovely.
You all wanted to say that, didn't you?
Oh yeah,
Pretty much. I think this, and pretty much the whole of Essence actually, is Steve Hogarth at his best at writing just cool stuff. I think it absolutely nails it. And it's just like, it's just wordplay. You can almost imagine him sat on this train writing into his little book and things like that as he goes along. It's that sort of vibe to it, and really good wordplay, and just it captures it brilliantly. I think it's a classic track in my mind.
I think if you're ever on a train, you can sense that track, can't you? Feel that same.
Yeah, and it's sort of happy and sad simultaneously. It's a little bit, we're stuck on this train and looking about there, they're on the wrong side of the tracks and all that sort of stuff, and we're whizzing past this thing. But it's also quite a happy, not Christmassy, but it mentions Christmas, but that warm sort of evening, not warm evening, but that warm sound of an evening passing through different towns, if that makes sense.
I like the way it goes up a level at the Movie Rich section. It really sort of steps up because it starts off quite sparsely, doesn't it? And then builds up towards the sort of make some light in the darkness. I'm glad you came on this trip and all of that. Don't lose your grip. And then that Rothers solo.
Oh, the Rothers solo, just when that kicks in. Yeah, God.
Brilliant.
It is lovely. It's that metaphor for life as well, isn't it? Of life passing you by, and you being the central and imagining life passing you by.
The drum sound on this is great as well. When it hits that movie rich and sort of you can hear the cymbals really clear on that drum. But the lyrics been around for a while. There was a version of Marbles. If you have the making of happiness, it's on there. The sort of 13.5-minute version of it that Dave Meegan wanted the band to try, which was very Trevor Horn, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I love it. I love that version.
Wow. I would normally have looked at that, James, but I'm afraid I'm unprepared. I have it on the rack. I will get that out on your recommendation.
It's a beast, yes. But the end, on the writing, the end section of the music, that sort of that rising piece for the last minute and a half is the oldest bit of music on the album, because that rising or ascending sequence of chords were written during radiation. And they tried to use it. Use it a few times over the writing periods. But yeah.
Have you had you wouldn't have had to fade that out at any point then, James?
No, because it was never attached to a song. It was always a little. They tried to make it into a song, but it never got attached to anything up to this point.
Yeah.
Okay, Nath, what do you think?
Love it. I think it's got the Rothers highlight album, the highlight of Rothers on the whole album on it for me. The guitar solo is excellent, and there's a real H moment when he does the Take My Hand, make some
squeeze it tight, yeah.
That is an H moment and a half, and yeah, you just can't beat it.
Yeah, I think the lyric is great. One of the key lines for me is "Don't lose your grip." It just takes it off in a slightly different angle.
It is the first kind of, where this whole album pulls together around the power of now and the sense of losing your grip on life and trying to regain control of your life, I think.
Yeah. Next track is Essence.
Now, it's funny because telling John when we were speaking earlier on today, I was listening through this on my Amazon Music account. And for some strange reason, when you play this album through on Amazon Music, when it gets to Essence, it kicks into the live version rather than the studio version for some strange reason. So I had to pause it, go to my iTunes account, play it off my iTunes account.
You could have got the CD out.
What this
the one that's next to you. Yeah, you could have played that.
I could have, but
never happens on vinyl. That Craig, just so you know, never happens on vinyl.
It does. But the thing is, at least if I play it on the streaming services, they get to earn like 0.0000001 pence for it. If I play the CD, they get nothing.
More on Apple Music than on Amazon.
Exactly. Anyway, do you want to talk about Essence, John?
I'd quite like to, but yeah, I don't think Craig wants to.
For me, it's, as much as I love this album, it's possibly the one I like the least. It doesn't mean I don't like it, don't get me wrong, but it's okay. It's okay. But from then on, from the end of Essence to the end is a banger. You know what I mean? And if it was half as long, I would be equally happy, let's say.
I think this is where the album takes off. I think this train feels a little bit like an intro, but this is the start of the album.
I feel with this track, this is the pretty much start of the Power of Now material. Yes, there's a hint to it in This Train Is My Life, but this is where it starts to the self-help starts.
Yeah, and I mean, I actually wrote more, kind of noted more about, again, that lushness of sound. And the other thing that occurred to me, starting with this track, but throughout the whole album, is there's a lot of the sounds are vocal sounds. A lot of the there's so much backing vocal on this album.
Lots.
And I don't think I've ever noticed that on a Marillion album before. It's not necessarily harmonies to the tune, but it is kind of ahs and oohs in the background and just choral sounds in the background. And I've probably written that down for half of the songs on both discs, to be honest. But I like that kind of roller coaster. It's quiet and it gets loud, and it's quiet and it gets loud. Yeah,
I think that sort of layering of the backing vocals and the different inflections brings back the gospel theme as well, because it has that real thing. And I'm with Barnes on this one a bit with Essence. It's probably the one that took longer to land on the album for me than the others. But writing it,
because of that roller coaster, you might think, oh, it just gets going and then it stops again. And then it just gets going.
Yeah. maybe as that. I think maybe it could benefit for me. If it was a tad short, it wouldn't be a problem, if that makes sense.
I quite like it. I think the choose life, choose living bit at the end is great. I think Pete at the beginning is amazing on this. Pete. I think it's fine. It's as good as this train for me.
I think the vocal harmonies at the end, as part of the play out, I think that's an area I can't think of them really going before outside of maybe Man of a Thousand Faces. So again, sonically, it's something very different to everything we've had before, and it's a bit of an odd track for them.
Yeah.
Say the Word is the only thing I could think of that's.
I love Say the Word.
I love it,
but
that also had that kind of vocal.
Yeah, that did, yeah.
Lucy calls it
kind of Say the Word.
Say the fucking word, she calls it.
It's fucking brilliant. Anyway,
the other thing I'd say about it is the end. The slowing down bit at the end is a bit odd.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's that link. It's slowing it down, ready for you to drop into the next track.
Yeah,
because the song itself came through a number of jams. You can tell the bits sort of come, but it feels like it's almost like the beginning leading up to was it from Nothing Fills a Hole into Woke Up. It sort of sets the scene almost, and this I think that slowing down is sort of giving you a before you hit Wrapped Up in Time.
Barnsley, Wrapped Up in Time.
I mean, it's the best, isn't it? It's not the best. It's about the third. I
would say I didn't know what you're going to say.
We all know what the best is, but I mean, it's the absolute classic song. Brilliant lyrics, brilliant sort of wordplay, amazing tune. I mean, there's unfaultable. It's fantastic. And also the Less Is More version, I thought that was good as well. I mean, what a great song. So it's definitely up there in my top 5 songs, I would say. As a lot of these album, I would say is.
I think it's a lyric to challenge Estonia. I think for me, Wrapped Up in Time makes me think about my mum.
Yeah, I think so. It could almost be, when you choose for when you sort of pass away, you go, actually, I don't want Estonia. I might go for this instead, and sort of. It's what a song.
Well, I was making some notes myself listening to it this morning, and I think this is modern Marillion at the best.
I think so. I mean, it doesn't get played very often, does it? It's sort of weirdly underplayed for the quality of the song, in my opinion. Anyway, what a song.
Craig,
I think it's beautiful. I've always liked this, and I really like the Less Is More version as well. It's a bit odd because the music that's the intro to the song doesn't really fit with it, yet it does. It's different, and I like it for that.
I took it something different. I took it as his lament for his marriage, that his memories of his time with his wife is sort of, it's wrapped up in time. It's in his head, but as a memory, and it fades as time moves on with him moving on.
It could apply, it could apply to either, couldn't it? Really?
I took it slightly different, James. I took it from sort of the power of now, and it's saying it's sort of literally saying it's now is the only time that matters, not the future, not the past. If that makes sense, that was my reading of it.
I think that's where I'm coming from with it, and it's also that sense that the things that you have that are alive now, it's not just that the things that you had are now dead, but the things that you have, they're still alive as long as you keep them alive.
And it's okay to look back fondly on them, and as an echo of the time they're wrapped in and all of that. I think it's a fantastic Hogarth lyric. It really is.
Yeah, this is without doubt already my second crying song on this album. After this. And there's at least another 2 on this side that take me down. So
I did wonder, there's not been a 5.1 mix of this, has there?
No, there hasn't, no.
Not yet.
This was again, I'm not massively into your 5.1, but the intricacy of the sound on this song just lends it. You can imagine a 5.1 just opening all those little bits and pieces out.
Or even a Dolby Atmos. Well, that's another story.
7.1.
I think you're right.
To start drilling holes in the ceiling.
I think there's a lot of Mark in this. There's a lot of sonically that sort of, as you're saying, it's that layering and layering and layering. Not this time of the vocals, but of the little sounds, the little bells, almost little. There's a lot of incidentals in this one.
There's a lot more Mark in the next track.
Yes.
Not much else.
Not much else
in it.
Nath, what's your take on?
I absolutely love it. It didn't really click with me, and then I went to a Marillion fan's funeral 12 years ago, and it was played there, and it was just like click. Okay, completely got this. Yeah, completely agree with John. I think it's a good alternative to Estonia. And the lyric about the star and its story being told backwards, again, that kind of links in with the Power Now stuff. It's very much whatever's in the future is yet to happen, but it's gone, and whatever's in the past has already gone. So the only time you can live is right now.
There's a theme here, isn't there?
There is.
Right now,
Who'd
on
you
this
think?
podcast, on the World Wide Web. Right now.
Anything else on Wrapped Up in Time, James? Anything from the writing?
It was written again and sort of later on in the Happiness sessions in October, November 2007. Basically, they wrote the remaining tracks of Happiness in 2007 from January to the end, and then they did a bit early in 2008, and then really sort of worked on them and mixed them for the rest of the year. That sort of way. This one was called Wrapped in Time. That was the working title for it.
Okay, cool. On to Liquidity.
Now, at the time, and is it still their only ever purely instrumental track?
I think that's correct. That's
Unless
correct.
you count Only a Kiss.
Yeah.
One for the quiz team there, Nate.
Yeah, winning quiz team there, Craig.
Champion.
Thinking, look,
There you go.
quiz champion.
Or could you say
Okay,
Winter
that's
Trees as well, potentially?
No longer the champion.
What's
No
1-1 now? 1-1. Anybody else want to challenge that?
On an album, it was the first.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
But and to be, I think it's really nice, but it's far too short. I think it's only just over 2 minutes, and I think I wish they developed it a bit further, because I think it's really, really nice.
This is the one I was talking about where the recording it to multi-track comes into its fore.
Yeah.
This is one of the tracks, because the actual jam or the idea was only about 3 minutes in its length, and pretty much I think they kept the whole piano piece to it, and some of the incidental music they were playing over the top of it was there all the way through to the final album. It was only shortened, edited, and a few overdubs, and there you go. It was just called Ascending Piano Idea.
Also, it works really well in the context of the album. It sort of sits in, it just beds in perfectly. It's not,
You
I
can't
don't
imagine
cry at this one.
going straight from Wrapped in Time into Nothing Fills the Hole. It needs some cushion.
Yeah.
Nath?
No, I think it shows Mark's growing influence within the band really well. And it does sound like a jam when you listen to it. It sounds like something they've just kind of come up with and then just left there, which we almost come back to later on at Happiness, which is it's quite raw in some ways, in terms of, yes, there's lots going on, but it's quite simple.
Yeah. Craig, anything else on this? You just wish it was longer.
I wish it was longer.
You've said that a number of times, haven't you?
No.
Speaking of which, Nothing Fills the Hole.
Hey!
If Mark Kennedy gets his way, I'm not going to tell you what the merch for that's going to be.
No.
I was going to say I hard relate to this song, but now I'm a bit worried about saying that after the.
Go on, go for it.
All right.
Stop recording, Craig, for God's sake.
I'm going to put a Sid James laugh in here. So
it's very key to the lyrical theme of the album and the end of Power of Now. that kind of, and I know so many people, especially as a kind of exist in a business space, who want something and they get it and then they want something else. And with me doing a lot of studies into the science of happiness, because my name means happiness, very appropriate, that should be here. That's the things that you see constantly. That's the reason why people aren't happy, because they always want something and then it's not good enough. They want something else. So this is a really, I love
the emotional version of chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
Chasing rainbows, my dad says. You're always chasing rainbows, Andrew.
It sheds
is what they call it, the hedonic treadmill.
Okay. I mean, the one thing I put two notes next to this. Firstly, who Hermes is, and then secondly, this lyric is too close to my truth. He says, it's sitting in here with all this shit.
So, yeah. But I'm not going to say it. I was going to let your Leeds United shirt you're wearing, but that's another. That is a load of old shit. Anyway, that's another story.
Sorry, can't do that because I don't let Craig do sci-fi, so we can't do football.
All right. Well, no. Moving very quickly on.
I think this is where I know James was talking about the kind of colours that Mark adds in the keyboards, but this is where I think Rothers, the guitar, subtle bits of guitar, just like little ghost notes and little riffy little chimey bits, that you have to listen for a few times to pick them up. And again, as it goes through the album, both discs, that really starts to come into the fore.
This is the track with a more of a Motown.
Yeah, it's the Motown one.
Yeah. Which normally I can't stand Motown, but I love this song, I have to say.
It's funny because the Motown bit, I mean the song itself, was it 3 minutes 23, but it's only half of it's like Nothing Fills the Hole. The other half of it is a lead up to Woke Up. So
yeah.
I just wonder, it would have been interesting if they developed the song a bit further and made a full song out of it. Would it have worked, or is it better just leaving it as it is?
My view is, I think leave it as it is with my vote, Craig. Almost, it's even though it's only, let's say, 3 minutes long or a minute and a half of the actual bit, I think that's more than enough, really. Yeah. It's just a build up to the next song. I think it's one of them sort of songs for me. A bridge.
It's almost going round in circles again, because you're back to something like Dreamy Street, which is the intro, and this is the intro almost to the second half of Essence.
Yeah, I think.
And H had these lyrics during Somewhere Else. There's a few versions sort of around that he tried this over, but this is the one that really worked and had a title of Wanted It.
Okay.
Could imagine this done somewhere else, actually.
Yeah.
Certainly lyrically.
Yeah.
What was really fun, as I was about to say, it reminds me lyrically of things like Somewhere Else, like The Wound in particular, where H is talking about this thing, whatever it might be, and there's quite a few of those where he talks about not being happy or wanting something more, and I think this is probably fits quite nicely within those.
Well, you could go back to Afraid of Sunlight for that.
Yes. Well, exactly. These changes was the other one that came to mind. There's quite a lot of him talking about wanting things, and I think this is him finally kind of addressing that maybe just constantly wanting things is not the right track for him.
It also links to These Who Die with the Most Toys.
I was thinking exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
Okay. Woke Up.
This is my favourite song on this disc.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just joyful. I love it.
Yeah.
And it was on that first listen when I hated the album, this was the highlight. Then this was like that. Oh, we've finally got a tune.
Well, it's the first time that the pace picks up in any of these tracks, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Almost the only time, really. You could argue, which I don't mind again.
I think this is still too slow. I think this could have still been quicker.
I
really like the song. It's one of my favorites, and it's great live, especially with the second half with like the additional Rothers solo. He does live. But yeah, when you hear because I don't pick the albums up, the studio albums up much. I prefer to listen to the live ones. Listening back to the studio album is like, come on, get going, speed it up.
I think the band feel that as well, don't they? I think
Yeah.
Mark's definitely mentioned it. I think H has mentioned it as well, that they go back and listen to the albums and think, bloody hell, this is slow.
Yeah.
Well, that was the interesting thing about, one of the interesting things about talking to Pete, where he said he goes back and he plays along to Fish era live stuff because it's faster.
Yeah.
To keep his chops up.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, for me, the fact that it's quite slow suits the album. It's an album I sort of listen to a lot, and it's sort of thing you just put on and just listen to it rather than having to, you're not smashing around to it or anything like that. It's just a brilliant sonic album for me, and the fact that it's slow didn't really upset me in the slightest, really.
I'm with James though. I've said before on this podcast, I go for live Marillion normally, and I also agree with what Felicity said, because I've overlooked this album because so much stuff came out in quick succession.
Yeah.
At the time, I loved it, and then I've moved on. But coming back to it, it's a fantastic double album. It really is.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say, if about this song specifically, I like the sort of, it's falsetto, but almost strained falsetto by H when he's singing it. It's sort of at the end and making his throat singing it. It's, I don't know, I'm not very musical, but it's a proper sort of screaming it out rather than just doing a clear falsetto.
I think that might be that was one of the big complaints I think a lot of people had about this album, was the amount of falsetto in it. And H's use of that falsetto. And that definitely, my first listen would have been one of the things that turned me off it. And it's probably one of the reasons why I like this song, was because he was belting it rather than being very in his higher register.
Yeah.
I like the second half of it when they go into the blinding obvious bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really. And
I think what's really nice about it is actually it's a love song, but it's not saying I love you. It's written in a because I think it's about Copenhagen, and so therefore it's about Lynetta, and it's part of that trilogy thing that James mentioned earlier, which is, he's found this new love, he's found this new person, and I think it's a really clever love song hidden behind lots of metaphors and references to other stuff.
I think it might be different cities. I do remember when they played Manchester, and when he sang "I woke up in a city full of rain," he was kind of pointing like, "This is the city full of rain." But
okay,
but it might have just been because Manchester is a city full of rain.
Barnes?
I don't know if now's the right time, but Half Full Jam is essentially, as we all know, is "Woke Up," isn't it? It's the same song, really.
Some of
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
it is, yeah.
by and large, it's certainly the same lyrics, or a large proportion of the same lyrics. I don't know if now's the time to talk about it, or maybe we'll save it till the end.
I will save it to the end because you don't like it, so we'll save it to the end.
They had H tried the woke up lyrics over many, many ideas during Somewhere Else. So they had a couple of versions which they tried and played around with, but this came out. I think the music to Woke Up sort of came out over the Happiness sessions.
Yeah. Okay. Right, are you ready?
I can't wait.
I know you can't wait.
Let unleash the bones.
Trap the Spark.
Well, without exaggerating, it's the single best song ever written in the history of music. It's that good. In fact, it's twice as good as that. It's that good, and it's for me, it's sort of my song, and it's very much the song of my youngest son, Sid. Partly because it came out at the same time, partly because can I tell the story? I'm just going to tell it anyway.
Yeah, just go.
But literally,
Craig will cut it out. You're all right.
it's when my wife Nikki was having Sid, our youngest child. George, my oldest child, was 6, and because it was a planned sort of a C-section thing, the day was planned out. So we filmed George going around London. We filmed this, and we took him to the hospital. And Sid was born, and then in my wisdom, I decided to put the whole of this video to Trap the Spark. So now every birthday it comes out, and every time I think about it, it hits that mark, if that makes sense. And that's partly why it's one of them songs. And then just, if I may just continue this sort of, before I break totally down, the day after I was born, and James will remember this, we went to see the Happiness is the Road show in Nottingham. And I imagine I cried the whole night. I would imagine.
Oh,
James,
you were in
may
bed.
remember.
You were
and
in
it was
bed.
just. Anyway, they didn't play Trap the Spark because that's becomes another story. But it's just sort of my song, if that makes sense, and my family song. It's just what a song.
Just to add to that. Sorry, go on, Barnes, finish it.
And then also, I don't know, again, if now's the time to talk about it, but it was one of them songs that sort of never got played. And then years went by thinking, surely they're going to play it. And the first time they ever played it, you may remember, you'll know this, John, it's just after, I'm not going to go down that track, but after they did Brave at PZ, it was directly after that, almost the next song after they did Brave, wasn't it? Or, within 2 songs of it. And it's, and it's like, I mean, literally, I was gone. Every time I hear it, I'm gone, but particularly that night, I was totally gone,
I know it means a lot to you. I mean, it's a great song, but obviously, that's a great story as well.
Just to add to that, because I didn't know Barnes was going to appear at this gig. So I was up visiting my friend Paul, who lived in Nottingham at the time, and I think we met you in the pub prior to the gig, Nathan, I think.
Yeah, quite possibly.
And then we're at the gig, and suddenly, out of nowhere, a can of Red Stripe got shoved in my hand, and somebody smashed me on the shoulder, turned around, and it was Barnes, who then proceeded just to dissolve during the gig.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, what does Trap the Spark mean to the other guys? Felicity, what's it mean to you?
Don't say it, Flick. Don't say it.
Good lyric.
Go on, say what you like.
It's good lyric. I hated this for a long, long time.
What did you call it, Flick? Every time you want to game on?
No, that did not come from me.
Didn't it? All right, fair enough.
No. I do love the lyric. I love the sentiment of the lyric. It's very much goes along with my own personal philosophy. But yeah, the music's just a bit nothing. And I know, I mean, the band have said it's actually a really complicated piece of music, but it doesn't sound like there's anything going on. Again, H's falsetto is bloody annoying. The drums seem really loud when everything else seems really quiet. But then I really like the last minute when it really starts to kick in is really good. But yeah, I just find that musically a little bit kind of wet.
Okay, Nate?
My kind of thoughts with it are very much associated with live versions as well. So that Brave night was my 20th birthday. So I was I'd just seen Brave. I'm surrounded by all my friends, and it was like, pin this moment. I was like, yeah, okay, this is it. So for me, it's very much a live song about those kind of moments that you're never going to get again.
Yeah. Craig?
I can't really add to what they've all said. It's a nice.
What do you mean that we've got 2 completely different views on it?
Yeah, I
can't add to that.
I like the song. It's not one of my favourites. I think for me, I've got the anticipation for the next track because I really love the next track.
Wow. Okay.
And I think it is a shame that it's never had much of an airing, but it's like a lot of this album. It deserved a lot more attention than it got.
I'm with Barnes. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful track. It's an
why that is,
amazing
John?
lyric. Sorry?
Because you also know the real thing.
I do know the real thing, yeah. I'd like to teach the world to sing, yeah. Sorry. I think it's great. I think it's one of the highlights of this album for me. It really is.
It is lyrically. It is saying exactly the same thing as Nothing Fills the Hole as well. I'm just rereading the lyrics, isn't it? That looked into a million laughing unhappinesses, but I know the real thing, and I've opened the box and I've touched the treasures of the earth. It's again him saying, I've had all these things, but I still wanted more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a real continuation of the theme.
No, I like it. I really do, and I think it's criminally underplayed.
Yes.
In the band's music. But this one was, where's my notes? It was written really early on the Somewhere Else sessions. It comes from 2 main jams. This was from January 2006, working title was You Can't. And actually, again, it was a Mark idea. That sort of rising keyboard idea sort of triggered the whole thing. And they had it recorded and mixed, and it was potentially going to be on somewhere else at some point, but then was put on the shelf.
Right. You can't call it any song. You can't. It's just...
What did you call it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You just can't do it. Okay. Sorry. Next track is A State of Mind.
Classic. Absolute classic. I reckon. Sorry, Flick, go on.
I always forget that it's coming. But my head always assumes that Happiness is the Road is after Trap the Spark. And then this starts, I think, oh, this is really lovely, this song.
So it's a good intro to the song. Oh, it's a good song all round, but I think I just like the way it segues from Trap the Spark and the intro to it and the whole thing. What a great song. A great pair of songs, actually. You know. Yeah. Again, criminally underplayed, you know, but there you go.
See, this really should be on a set list a lot more because it's such an uplifting song, you know, thematically, musically, and everything. And they need songs like this in a set list, you know, to bring the level up. And just like you said, just criminally underplayed.
Can't disagree with any of that.
I know. I'm in complete agreement. I think it should be on. I think it should be played a lot more. But I have to say, I remember a certain American fan from Alabama who was busting, I think, Rother's balls about them not playing it very much. So potentially that's why. So, you know, Ginger maybe to blame for.
Wow. Okay.
I love Ginger.
Just to confirm, that was Nathan who said that.
Ginger won't be listening to this, Guy.
No, but Guy will. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I mean, this one, I really like this one as well. Again, it's sort of a nice, uplifting song. It has had a long gestation period because it was written during Marbles. Again, if you've got the Making of Happiness is where the jam comes from. But it's really funny because the whole jam, just before this, they were jamming something massively, almost Led Zeppelin. Really, H was like wooing and shouting and really up tempo to a lyric called "The Cat with the Seven Souls," which ended up on the H Barbieri album. And then they suddenly stopped. This was winding down, and then Ian started that drum pattern, that sort of riff,
the rolling
drum, the sort of, and then they just led into that, and then H just off the cuff had two sentences, and that's all he had as they wrote it during Marbles, and the band were worried that it was too slow. So the versions on Marbles, they speeded up and made it a bit more rocky, and then when it came to the EP in 2005, which was the first bit they worked properly with Mike, he wrote the lyrics and they had this mixed ready to be part of that EP and then remixed it a little bit for Happiness.
Wow. Okay. Great song. Great song. I think Craig's right. It's very uplifting, which is probably why it's not in the set list very much because there aren't many uplifting songs.
But it's only 4.5 minutes, you know, you could stick that in quite easily.
You could.
That's the thing, rather than having Hooks in You Again or Cover My Eyes, which are great songs, but it's nice to have something different, wouldn't it?
I wondered if we had to slightly drop the register because it is pretty hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, the title track then, Happiness is the Road.
Who's going to go first?
Go on, Barnes.
I sort of like the first half of it, less bothered about the repeated end frame at the end. Not that it's sung like that, but certainly when you see it live, it's sort of one of these echoey things that sort of the band go off and everyone's singing it for the best, you know, all through the encore. Yeah. So I'm less bothered about that because I don't think it sort of rings in, but I think the first part of the song is brilliant, you know.
See, again, I didn't really like it to start with, and again, it's that falsetto. It's not just a falsetto. I think it's that mumbly vocal.
Well, he's almost speaking, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know.
But that initial quote, I quote that all the time. The greatest lesson the greatest blessing that we have is the dawn of each new day,
Right.
a chance to finish what we started and made a mess of yesterday.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful thing to bear in mind, whatever life is throwing at you. And our friend Mr. Rich Neal I seem to remember back on Molf days when he kind of pointed out you need that beginning bit for the rest of the song to make sense, for the louder bit to make sense.
Yeah,
so it's almost like walking into it's quite church-like, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a church organ. It is you need it for context.
I think at Rock City Notes that night, this is where I sort of completely crumbled, wasn't it, James?
I was about to say, this was like, I turned around and I've never seen someone, and I know this is a podcast and you can't see me, but I've never seen somebody do this so much. He's just blubbing his head off.
Well, they finished the sets with this, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they gradually walked off one by one, didn't they?
Yeah.
But this was, funnily enough, you're saying about you need the first part for the second part, but the second part came first. So for the it was written the same day as Marzipan, and was what's called Happiness Is was the working title. H had bits and pieces of the lyrics going sort of through somewhere else, and then the riff, the refrain of Happiness Is the Road. That's really what triggered the whole jam. Yeah. And then they had this for a month and a bit. They were toying around with it, extending it, and then they jammed the intro, which again, because it was down to multi-track, that keyboard, as you said, that sort of churchy orchestral keyboard part is from the jam, and they kept it, and then H just re-sang over the top of it.
Yeah, cool. Craig, you all right with it?
I love it. It's not a track that I mean, again, we're criminally underplay this album. And so it's never been a track that I've played a lot. Yeah, I really enjoy it when I hear it. I never used to think it when they played it live and when they went off the stage with it. To me, it was always like an underwhelming way to end a gig before you got to the encores. But I understood the concept of it, and as great as it was, but live it never really did that much for me. But as a studio track, I love it.
I don't think it works as well as a sing-along as people think it does.
I don't think it does.
Why? It just doesn't. Yeah, I know it doesn't quite work as well as.
It's not sounds that can't be made, is it? It's not that sort of a vibe, sort of sing-along bit.
Let's not talk about that.
Or 3 Minute Boy. It's not quite.
Yeah, it's not 3 minutes.
It's not 3 Minute Boy.
No. Nathan.
I absolutely love it. I think the lyrics are great. I've been quite fortunate that I've got the handwritten lyric to this. So I won the charity raffle in 2009. As part of the book, there is the lyric written out to this. So I've had the chance to have a conversation with H about it, and he got quite philosophical and talked about the power now. So it means quite a lot to me because I've got that lyric written out. And also, when I went over to Utrecht to see them, H walked up to me and went, "What should we play tomorrow?" Because they were doing a two-nighter. And I was about to go, "You should do Happiness Is the Road." And before I got in there, he went, "We're not doing Happiness." And I was a bit like, "Oh, okay. Well, I don't really know then. You've kind of thrown me."
Chuck the spark.
Has anyone read The Power of Now?
I've read about half of it.
I only read about half of it. I started reading it, and then I realised that I'd read most of it in yoga text in Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutras and things like that. So I was like, I already kind of know this anyway, but I feel like I ought to go back and actually read the book.
I decided to read the Shawadi Wadi annual instead.
Oh, well. What more do you need?
Got it in.
I've got some other musical notes, as it were. So in that beginning bit, Brothers is doing all sorts of bits and pieces and weird stuff. You kind of move into that really funky high bass.
Yeah.
Which is, I just love that little pulsy bit. Suddenly occurred to me, I think it's just after the Baby Human Sunrise bit. There's it's a big keyboard. Da, da,
Yeah.
da, da.
Mm.
It's the same tune as "Throw a Tarpaulin Over Me" from Planet Mars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Which they do very occasionally. I pointed out
They
that
do throw
there's
them
one
in.
on
Yeah.
sounds that can't be made in Montreal, and I pointed out to H, and it was completely not deliberate. So it's probably not deliberate in this case either. And then there's this kind of offbeat pulse, which I can't demonstrate because it goes against the rhythm, but the bass and the keys and the guitar all pick it up at different times, so it kind of gives it that real kind of funky pulse throughout the whole of the song. I can't really describe it any better than that. I tried writing it down and thinking of ways to describe it, but I couldn't. But it's interesting how different instruments pick up that rhythm throughout the song, which you kind of need if it's that long, I suppose.
Yeah, it doesn't feel too long as a song, despite what Craig has said about repeating "Happiness Is the Road."
And despite it not really having a lot, I mean, you've got obviously the beginning bit and then it's almost a middle bit and then the repeating happiness at the end. But actually, it's not as complex a suite as something like Invisible Man that has 7 or 8 sections, or it's actually quite simple in its construction.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, that's the end of the main album. Barnes.
I was going to say, and that's the end of Essence, everybody. So
No. You're going to say exactly what I'm going to say now. So, but due to popular demand, we're going to discuss Half Full Jam, the bonus track.
I don't listen to it. It's just something that I'm kind of with.
Is it not on streaming?
Yeah, not just the album finishes with "Happiness Is the Road" for me.
I like it. It's just a bit unnecessary.
I mean, to this day, I've absolutely no idea why it's on the album. I've literally no idea why it's there. And the album's clearly finished, or that suite's clearly finished. And like, we're in the internet age. If you want to release it as a B-side or release it as a such and such. It's like, why would you stick it on the end of a CD? Anyway, that's just that grumbling too much.
There's quite a gap, isn't there? There's quite a
yeah, but it's why would you put it on? It's just like, or at least put it on the part 2, the second album. Would it make more sense in that world? I would say, but anyway, that's no questions.
I like especially the first half of it. The first part is I like it. It would have been lovely to actually hear it developed into a proper idea. There might be a sense of, I wonder how James feels about this. There's a sense of, let's put it on here because then we can never use this in a song in the future.
It's from the Somewhere Else sessions. And it was called Half Empty Jam, and it's actually been edited because it was originally 2 minutes longer.
Right.
And
it was called Half Empty Jam.
Yeah.
On the download that went to sites.
It was only changed really late on, and there are a few versions. So although it was a jam, it was played around with a bit. They did do some overdubs, and H re-recorded some of the vocals.
Why do you think it was included, James?
I've got no idea. Next time I speak to Mr. Hunter, I will ask him.
Yeah, because it's not listed on the box. It is on the retail version, but it's not on the rack.
It's just such a curious thing. It's like you'd make a suite of music and stick an odd thing on the end. It's just very curious.
Just to take the edge off it for you, Barnes, because you love it so much that you need to put that on the end.
I mean, it don't exist as far as I'm concerned. It'll literally
get back down to earth.
I agree with Felicity. It makes more sense to go on the second volume.
Yeah.
I don't think it does. I don't think you do because of the lyric. I don't think you could put it on the second volume. I like it. I like it. I think it's great because it's got that raucous section at the end. I think it's great. It's a nice alternative,
but it doesn't fit.
Well,
it's like it's almost
not. No, I could see it's underdeveloped. Yes.
Do you not think
it's not exactly like a Marvel film where you bugger off at the titles and then they play like a clip at the end? It's not like that.
But they're famously a band, as I understand it, that will leave out a great song because it doesn't fit within the context of an album. That just happens all the time. And then they get an album which is essentially a concept album, works the suite, and then for no good reason whatsoever, stick it on the end. It just don't make any sense. I will go to my dying grave. It don't make any sense to put it on there, in my opinion. Like it or not like it, you know.
Okay. Well, I like it. You don't. That's all right.
Come on, Nathan, what do you think?
I love it, and I do love it, but it is underdeveloped. But for me, it's just them being a bit silly, and just jamming out a little bit. Does it fit on there? No, but hey ho, I don't have to listen to it.
Is it stretching it a bit to say, look, this is us living in the moment, guys?
No, it's bullshit.
Well, it would be a good point to draw this first episode to a close, I think. That on that bombshell. But I just wanted to thank Nathan Page,
Thank you.
James Levey,
Thank you.
Felicity Pryke,
Super cool.
and Mr. Epic himself, Andrew Barnsley Wood,
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Good night.
and my podcast other half, Craig.
Thank you very much, and we shall be back for part 2.
It's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Take care.
Somebody want to do it?
Stay alive!
Stay alive.
Yay!
Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out marillion.com, fishmusic.scot for all the good stuff.